Hello, everyone. Hope everybody is fine and healthy. So today our class is starting regarding developmental psychology, the concept of development and its influencing factors. So this is the class we will be reading. Thank you for being with us. Let's start the class right now. So we will be talking what is the developmental, what's are the concept of development and its influencing factors, right? So uh, the developmental the development refers to all aspects of the end process of changes throughout the entire life cycle, from the moment of fertilization when the human life begins to death. So this is called development. It is clarified here, and until what time? Until death of a human being or any living creatures. And in the process of the developmental changes in physical and its but luckily it includes all human characteristics such as movement, intelligence, thinking, language, personality, society, emotions, and morality. So in this concept, the entire development or changes which are happening, this is called development. And also in the course of the human development throughout the lifespan, the certain characteristics increase the quantitatively. So in the quantitatively, the function and also which are becoming the competent and the structure can be there, and the controversial, it can be controversial, right? The decrease in the quantity with the positive changes that become more complex, and the negative effects which decline in function and also in the structure of physical motor functions, which developmental and with the development and perception of development, with the cognitive development, language development, more memory development, personality development. So there are different kinds of development, as you can see in due course. We will be reading. And it has been predominantly thought that the development of childhood and adolescence is a positive change in a human life, right? And whereas the development of old age from middle age is a negative change due to the decline of age. And however, the recent researches have been done in order to show the positive changes, the positive development continues even in the old age in various areas of analysis, in integrations, reasoning and problem-solving abilities. Therefore, a simple increase or decrease in the scheme that thinks the human development change positively or negatively with the time that does not show the developmental progress properly. So there are two kinds of developmental changes. One is negative and another is positive. And also in the concept of in the concept related to the development, this is the second one, and the third one is there are individual differences in development, and also growth and maturation are the concepts closely related to development. Okay, Hangdong Go, understanding of the development, I growth has been mainly accepted as the concept of meaning positively in the physical characteristics. And also, but recently, the fourth one, which is the development continues, but not at the same time rate. So on the different time rate, right? As the term intellectual growth is not unfamiliar. Growth and development are considered to be the same concept that it can be used interchangeably. Maturity refers to this mechanism by which the genetic factors orient in the developmental process, according to the study of Crane in 1992. Therefore, conceptually, maturation is unlimited, and developmental changes caused by the genetic traits that are completely independent of environmental influences. So, as we can see in this due course, that developmental changes can happen in various areas of life, or in during various grounds of life changes when we are going, and developmental changes can occur. In this one, the human process development, which are the changes are not affected by the environmental, they're at all. So they depend entirely on maturation. This can be, it is also controversial, right? So let's read the first one. The first one is development has a certain sequence and cumulative, and it is cumulative, right? Cumulative. And development proceeds in the certain directions from the top to bottom, the central to peripheral, and also the whole to detail, right? In this study, which is done in 1994 by Datan et al. In 1987. So the concept related to development, and also the third one is there are individual differences in development, and growth and maturation are a concept closely related to the development and hang down. So these are the studies which are done, and the different in different areas, as we said before, and also understanding of the development. I growth has been mainly accepted as the concept of meaning a positive change in physical characteristics, right? But recently, the development continues, but not at the same rate as we said before. And it is critical period for the time and also for the development. And there are some certain types of development which are affected by environmental factors. The sixth one is development goes through the process of differentiation and also integration. And the seventh one is the area of development is closely related to each other. So there are some factors which are related to each other, and also these factors are interchangeably working with each other, or doing or happening at the same time, or there may be some development which are not time bound. We have to understand the concept of this. So one are the developmental changes which are positive, other kind are negative, and there are factors which are interchangeably connected with each other. Now we will be reading the factors affecting development, right? The factors which are affecting development are that influence the development include hereditary and environment, and they can interact with each other. And the process of determining the human psychological characteristics such as intelligence, such as personality, and also solitary or socially, and also they can appear as a genotype, appears as the phenotype, genotype and phenotype. Phenotypes are those changes which are happening due to environment, and genotypes are those changes which are happening due to the genes, human genes or DNA. So my mechanism here, it is not as simple as biological genetic mechanism that determine the color of eyes, and the development of the psychological traits in genetic predisposition and the environmental factors, they interact very complexly. So both of them, they're working with each other complexly. It is not that simple. It's not that simple, but they are both working with each other. And the process of how much a person's psychological traits are specifically determined by hereditary and acquired, like the phenotypes, and just as all in human being traits that are not genetically determined, just as they cannot be changed. In information, the heredity and environment that are constantly influencing and interacting, So it is very difficult to determine how much the environmental experience can contribute to changes to these characteristics. And the question which are normally rising, so the question of the relative magnitude of the influence of heredity and environment has long been concern of psychologists. And it is a topic of interest. And although many studies have been done, and much still is unknown about this issue, right? Now going further, we will be reading more. And as briefly reviewed, the theoretical approach in developmental psychology, the early stages with the extreme environmental determinism ability is, for the example of demanding the development behaviorist psychologist, right? Behaviorist psychologist, and also the temperament. We will be reading accountment for about 10% of the infants. Usually they are at the puberty level. Factors which are affecting development, behavioral psychologists believe that the various psychological characteristics in the human beings, they are determined by acquired experience. Each has been, however, its extreme environmentalist view is no longer accepted in developmental psychology today. It has been shown that this can be purified. This can be purified according to a study, as we can see. And these research results, which are like mechanism is not as simple as biological genetics, and mechanism determines the eyes of the color. In developmental psychology or psychological triads, the genetic predisposition and environmental factors, they interact very complexly. So it is clear that it is not as rather in recent years. But in feet, they are congenitally determined by genetic predisposition. It tends. However, the human beings, then they are infinitely in the process of how much a person's psychological traits are specifically determined by heredity and acquired. Just all human beings, traits are working in, but not genetically determined, just as they can be changed. And also, another important point is that the heredity and the human, the environmental influences constantly interact in the complex form to determine the entire development process of human beings. Even though fainting is a biologically determined trait, it can be changed through everyday life experiences, right? It can be changed, and attempts to do so may be wrong in some ways. In this respect, Hib in this respect, according to the study or findings of Hib in 1980s, suggested that the human foot, even though if fainting is biologically determined trait, it can be changed through everyday life experiences. This is really important, right? And the ability is there. For example, determine a demanding temperament, accounting for 10% of all infants, is usually puberty. All is puberty. However, through the interactions with their parents who are sensitive and warm to children, it has been shown that this can be purified, according to this study, as we can see, like Dunn and Kendrick in 1980s. These research results are in the information which heredity and the environmental environment is constantly influencing and interacting. So we can see here that environment has its own influence on the human body and human psychology and human phenotypes, and also some points in many types genotypes are considering and finding what a human being or changes is he or she going through, and also the environment has its own effects. Intellectual ability and personality, which are the two most important aspects of human development, are the constant relationship between heredity and environment. So we have two kinds of situations. One is heredity and another is environment. So differentiate between the genetics and environmental influences on development, and it as indicated by the researchers, and also the attempts to do so may be wrong in some ways. Yeah, in some ways may be wrong, but it is really important to understand both of them in relationship with each other. Now reading the developmental psychology in developmental stages. We will reading what is the developmental psychology? The first one, the concept of developmental psychology is an academic system on human development that systematically deals with the human changes, and also this is finding and dealing with what? With the human development that is systematically dealing with the human changes, and also the description of the human beings or human changes as the age of the interest, such as infants, adults, and elderly, has expanded. So a person is going through these kind of changes. That's why we are reading everyone on its stages, right? And developmental psychology mainly focused on changes in infants and children and adolescents at the age of interest, such as we are reading, and these kind of situations. Changes that occur in humans, they are the main subject of developmental psychology. So how do you understand? Let me ask you this question. How do you understand these changes or this change? It defines an academic character of lunar psychology, just as the geographer measures the history and sedimentation by strata, and anthropologists just as the relics, as a relic of the past left behind in the present, so that they reveal the evidence. And developmental psychologists also examine the human changes from a history perspective, deal with a developmental phenomenon in which these changes, which are not noticeable at the first, appear distinct over time, progresses to developmental psychologists. Time, it is really an important clue. So as the historians, or as the people, they are reading and studying developmental changes. So we also can read from the developmental history or relations between the genetics and also situation, which are due to influence by environment. So both of them, and here is the main focus, that environment and genetics, they have close relations, right? And also the goals of developmental psychology. What is this? It is a realistic description of human changes. When do you start walking? This is a simple question, right? When do you start walking? When you start walking, what linguistic changes you go through, and when does the puberty begin? And pay attention to what kind of changes it is showing. So explaining the mechanism of that cause changes. What are these changes? Why are these happening? And when to try to explain the causality of elucidating elucidating what causes the changes and how it works, and also predicting what changes will occur at each stage of development, and through the description of explanations of changes. Appropriate control and intervention are made based on the predictions, and inappropriate changes and the development, and it is predicted through the prediction of the prediction, and also it is minimized, and the optimal development, it is promoted and maintained. Possible. Now reading about the possible developmental intervention. How can we intervene about the possible or potential intervention? So developmental stages and developmental tasks. The content and the construction method of developmental psychology differ depending on which one emphasizes and the phenomenon and technique and the developmental mechanism. Inappropriate centered on developmental technology. The amount of development is generally based on the specific area, on the specific period on area, and describing the award. So on the other hand, in the approach emphasizing and the developmental mechanism and development process is explained by the development theorist. Going further, a technical approach to development, right? Technical approach. How can we approach that? The most commonly found method of constructing the developmental psychology and the phenomenal descriptive approach is the growth period, or is the period, or the growth period, or age. At each stage, the development is classified and the developmental characteristics of each stage is described. More recently, the period of birth to about 1 month after birth. Within infancy, it is subdivided into neonatal period. Pre-admission period is divided into infancy stage and also infancy stage, and the infancy stage from 2 to 4 years old child. Childhood is referred as the school age. Got the point? So this is, the infancy has been divided into 2 subgroups. One is from the first month to after childbirth, and it is also subdivided. So, and the infancy is classified, and childhood is referred to the school age time. So reading further, it is so dividing or stage areas of development by psychological characteristics. Another way to describe developmental phenomenon is to divide and state the areas of development by psychological characteristics: physical and motor functions, development, perception of development, cognitive development, language, memory, personality, social and environmental development. The moon and moral development are the representative areas of development. In Korea, right? In Korea, it is difficult to find a book on a developmental psychology with such structure, although it is difficult to see the Western books that have been published recently trends to be organized by the area. So in Korea, it is difficult to find a book, or also the Western, it's really difficult to find in the Western world as well, finding about studying these developmentals with the details. And also the third one, The third one is the advantages and disadvantages of composing the content of the developmental psychology by period. Organizing uh, the contents of the developmental psychology by the period has advantage of specifying the developmental characteristics of early age. However, it is difficult. It is difficult to systematically understand in the development of the psychological characteristics as the stages are subdivided. It is really difficult if the stages are subdivided into groups. Thank you so much. This was the end of the class and hope you have enjoyed. So if you have any question, you can share with us. You can let us know, and please let me understand if you understand the lecture. If you do not understand the lecture, please write for me your suggestions so we can go further. Or if you have questions, please do not hesitate to write for us. Thank you so much.